Welcome to the team, everyone. Seriously, I am absolutely thrilled to have you all here. So, as we kick off our new innovation mandate, I really wanted to put together something special for you. You can think of this explainer as your ultimate playbook for building those breakthrough ideas. We're going to dive into a highly effective, super structured method for totally dismantling traditional thinking and, actually generating actionable solutions. Okay, let's just dive right into it. Right off the bat, I want to bust a pretty common myth. There's this massive misconception in the business world that to innovate, you basically have to lock your team in a room with a blank whiteboard and just wait for lightning to strike. Honestly, that open-ended brainstorming is exhausting, and quite frankly, it rarely works. The core premise we're going with here is simple, but it's really powerful. We absolutely do not need to invent from scratch. Instead, we're going to use a structured toolbox called SCAMPER. It's essentially a checklist of 7 distinct cognitive lenses that guide us to tweak, modify, and recombine what already exists into something genuinely extraordinary. So here's our playbook for today. First, the new team playbook. Second, the basics. Third, the shifts. Fourth, the radical cuts. And finally, we'll get to your first innovation challenge. Starting off with Section 1, the new team playbook. As a brand new team, I really want us to completely let go of that pressure of waiting for a eureka moment. We're not going to sit around just hoping for a stroke of genius. Instead, our methodology is going to be incredibly deliberate. Scamper is a lateral thinking framework, and it's driven entirely by targeted what-if questions. We're going to systematically dismantle the status quo using this exact checklist. It completely takes the pressure off you as an individual, and it puts all that power directly into the process itself. Moving on to Section 2, the basics. This covers substitute, combine, and adapt. Okay, so our first tool is substitute. Now, this is really an experimental trial and error process. Whenever we're feeling stuck on a problem, this should absolutely be the very first lens we look through. The big guiding question here is what can be swapped out without compromising and ideally actually enhancing our core value proposition? Can we swap out the materials, the target audience, maybe the entire operational process? To really ground this concept, think of it just like cooking. If you're baking a cake, but someone has a dietary restriction, you don't just throw out the whole recipe, right? You just substitute standard flour with a gluten-free alternative. Boom, you still get a cake, but you've slightly altered the components to solve a very specific problem. That is substitution in its absolute simplest form. And to see what substitution looks like on a massive, industry-disrupting scale, just think about Netflix. They didn't change the core value proposition of delivering entertainment to your living room, but they substituted the logistics-heavy physical DVD by mail model with a totally digital streaming model. By swapping out just that one massive operational component, they became a global powerhouse. Let's jump to the next letter, combine. This lens is all about combinatorial creativity. Innovation actually happens super frequently right at the intersection of completely different fields. The question we have to ask ourselves here is, what happens if I merge two totally unrelated ideas, functions, or systems to create a new synergistic solution that's way stronger than its individual parts? Think of this one like a musical mashup. You take the isolated vocals from a classic rock song, you combine it with the heavy beat of a modern electronic track, and suddenly, you have this completely fresh, really powerful new piece of art that appeals to an entirely new audience. You're just merging distinct features to create a holistic new experience. So the crucial point for us is applying that mashup mentality to our own products. Apple did this beautifully. Think back to before the iPhone. You literally had to carry around a mobile phone, a separate digital camera, an MP3 player, and probably a bulky GPS device. Apple simply asked, well, what if we merge all these into one unified ecosystem? They combined distinct technologies into a single device, and in doing so, they completely changed how the whole world communicates. Our third basic tool is adapt. This is where we rely really heavily on analogical thinking. Look, we don't always need to invent the wheel. Sometimes we literally just need to borrow someone else's wheel and slap it right onto our own wagon. We look outwards and ask, how is this exact problem being solved in a completely different domain, and what can we just straight up copy? It's a highly practical approach. Imagine you're out trying to clear heavy snow off your driveway with a standard broom, and it's just not working. You look next door, you see your neighbor using a snow shovel, and you adapt their tool for your identical problem. It's cross-domain borrowing, plain and simple. In the business world, this often takes the form of biomimicry,
which is adapting brilliant solutions directly from nature. For instance, Velcro was adapted by an inventor who just noticed how plant burrs naturally hooked onto his dog's fur. High-performance swimsuits, they were adapted from the drag-reducing microscopic texture of shark skin. And those specialized flashlights that attract insects were actually adapted from the bioluminescent lure of the deep-sea anglerfish. Nature literally already solved the problem. These innovators just adapted the solution to high-tech products.
All right, section 3, the shifts. This is modify and put to another use or repurpose. The modify lens, which, by the way, also includes magnifying or minifying, really encourages us to shift how our users perceive value simply by exaggerating or shrinking what we already have in front of us. Can we make a feature 10 times bigger, or maybe 100 times smaller? Think of modify just like adjusting a volume dial on a stereo. You aren't actually changing the song being played, but by turning the dial all the way up, magnifying the bass, or turning it all the way down, minifying the treble, you completely alter the listener's physical experience of that music. Procter & Gamble used this exact minification technique to totally revolutionize an incredibly boring chore. They looked at those heavy, bulky liquid detergent bottles and the messy measuring cups, and they basically minified the entire process down into Tide Pods. By simplifying the dosage into a single pre-measured dissolvable unit, they completely modified and simplified the consumer's laundry ritual, a real game changer. The next shift is put to another use. I like to call this the ultimate recycling bin concept. We look way past the original intended function of our assets and aggressively ask, okay, who else could benefit from this? How can this be used in a way it was never actually intended to be used? Take standard steel shipping containers, for example. This perfectly shows how you can build incredible value out of totally unexpected places. For decades, literally their only intended use was maritime cargo transport. But then visionary designers put them to another use. They repurposed these super sturdy boxes into affordable modular tiny homes, trendy pop-up cafes, and even backyard swimming pools. They found massive untapped market potential simply by recontextualizing an existing asset. Moving into section 4, the radical cuts. Eliminate and rearrange. Now, these tools create radical, crazy efficiencies. Let's look at eliminate, reverse, and rearrange. Apple eliminated the friction of wired audio entirely to create Bluetooth AirPods. McDonald's totally reversed standard restaurant operations by making you pay before you eat, which drastically increased their speed. And IKEA? They rearranged the assembly sequence completely. Having the customer buy flat-pack furniture and build it themselves at home disrupted a massive global industry. And finally, section 5, your first innovation challenge. So I want to leave you with a rather provocative question as we wrap up this explainer. What are we going to scamper first? I seriously want each and every one of you to take these 7 tools: substitute, combine, adapt, modify, put to another use, eliminate, and reverse, and apply them to the very first project sitting on your desk today. Don't wait for a blank whiteboard. Grab your checklist, start asking what ifs, and let's go build something truly amazing together. Once again, welcome to the team.